Hey, what's going on, fam? Welcome to another episode of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. Darius and Jeff coming to you from Scottsdale, Arizona. And today we've got the pleasure of sitting down with Darwin Crawford, my real estate homie.
The man. Huh?
And host of Beers and Stories.
Yes, sir.
No BS. Real estate investing, right?
Yeah,
REI?
real estate investing.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me. This is a big honor to be here, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
Kind of. I've listened to a few of these, and you never know what's going to go down.
No, man, we try to get deep and dope. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Try to keep the party going. So you've made a lot of moves as of late. I know one of your goals moving into closing out 2018, moving into 19 was to make that transition with the biggest book of business ever, and you accomplished that.
Yeah, hit a milestone. Let me see, end of third quarter 2018, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
been working at it for a few years, and felt good.
yeah. But it's interesting to me that you're still interested in. Not necessarily. It doesn't surprise me that you're thriving in real estate, but it's interesting to me that you're still genuinely interested in real estate, having gone through the recession, right? Like the fact that you chose to get back in it.
Sure.
And we'll get into your story here in a second, but I want to preface it with when the recession happened, I didn't know we were in a recession. Call it ignorance, dumb luck, whatever, but as kinetic as things were for the military fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, op tempo was so high. When I came through OCS, TBS, MOS school, and checked into Yuma, the message was loud and clear. Don't unpack your bags. Don't look to rent anything. Show up, check in, and you're off to the desert.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like that, there was, and I've never been a news guy. So like all the things that were happening with the bubble and real estate and subprime.
You
and
missed all that.
I just didn't know. And at the same time, to be honest, I didn't care enough to know because it wasn't in my universe.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So when I came out in 2012, like things were on the upswing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So even then, like people were talking about like, oh, I'm finally getting back on my feet, and I still didn't get it. God. And then, as our relationship has developed and we've gotten closer, and I've come in to know like the details of your story, I'm like, that happened to millions of people?
Millions.
Fuck. So
Yeah,
for
I said that word a lot actually during that period of time. That was one of my go-tos.
So like for everybody who doesn't know like your story, how you got here and everything that you've been through, kind of give us the cliff notes and we'll dive in along the way.
Okay, so cliff notes. I moved to Arizona Christmas of 2013. I had a bit of a, we'll call it a checkered career running around Atlanta. So I had started and shut down a couple of small businesses. Believe it or not, I was actually, I ran a lumber yard and a sawmill in the middle of Atlanta for 7 years. So I got my start in the construction world, kind of like a junkie moving over to the other side of the business. I got into the supply side of the construction business. So manufacturing, some transportation, that sort of thing. Ran that for a while, got my teeth kicked in when, as I tell everybody, my timing has never been great. To give you an idea of how bad it was, I opened the doors on 18,000 square feet of warehouse space, 4 employees, and a small business loan catering to the high-end construction industry in February of 2008. Okay? I mean, it could not have been worse. Right? And so...
Because the shit hit the fan.
The shit hit the fan in October of 2008. Okay. That's when... And I could bore you with all the financial history stuff. That's a nerdy hobby of mine. But let's just say the tap got shut off hard right about end of summer of 08. And I distinctly remember it. I had good clients. They were spending... I mean, it was the bubble, right? Just stupid money. And I distinctly remember there was almost like a feeling in the air, and no one really knew what the hell was going on. It was like, oh shit. You know, because I know that the phone's on, like the phones are working. I paid the bill and no one's calling. You know, I've got machinery and people, and at this point I was 26, right? And so like young to do that, and I had a successful run up until '08. Hindsight being 2020, I mean, everyone had a successful run up until '08, right? So kind of, we won't get too deep into that right this second, but more or less I got my teeth kicked in. I held on to the business for the next roughly 4 years, and it was a fight. Every day was waking up, you know, your stomach's in a knot, like, you know, we could trade stories all day long about how broke have you ever been, you know, and there's a difference between broke and then broke and running a business with people depending on you, you know, like, so the next 3 or 4 years were just god awful, right? Like, I didn't lose a lot. I did have to turn one truck back in, but I managed to keep most everything. You know, I wasn't able to buy a house. Like, I rented, lived in my buddy's basement for a year or two, you know, paid for it, whatever, but just a very difficult time. And, you know, I say like those were kind of my formative years, right? Because you have this great run up when you're in your early 20s and let's face it, like I was a retard coming out of college. Everybody was, you know, early 20s, testosterone poisoning, that sort of thing. But, you know, you learn what it's like to really face down the firing line, you know, like negotiating with creditors, you know, having, you know, you go through and you take those hits, and it's very embarrassing and humiliating. And I probably wasn't in a position to really see it. Like, now I look back on it, I'm like, that was a good experience to have had, because it definitely, like, I will carry those scars for the rest of my life. Right. And they make me, as you know, a more cautious person with business now, because I've been through that. So fast forward, late 2013, my parents are no longer married. So my mother had moved out here after my brother and sister had come to Arizona. I moved out here to remodel my mom's house. So she had purchased a short sale. It's over in Central Phoenix area, and it was, for lack of a better word, pretty ragged out. So I told her, you know, I was kind of coming to an end of Atlanta. A couple of my friends had moved away. Like, just the party was kind of ending. So I said, I tell you what, I need a break. So I threw my dog, motorcycle, and tools in the truck and trailer, pointed it down to 20, put the hammer down going west. Came out to Arizona, spent the next 8 months literally remodeling the house, like with my bare hands, you know, got it done. Beautiful place. Mom's got a nice place to live now. And then I just fell in love with Arizona. And then during the course of this, I had talked with, you know, I've always been interested in real estate. You know, I had messed around with it some before the recession. I'd gotten into lumber, and so I was not in the real estate business when the recession hit. Right. I was supplying it, but I wasn't actually on the firing line of owning the property and the liens and everything else. So long story short, I've always been interested in buying things that pay me. Yeah. Right? Like, as you know, I'm not like a super flashy, spendy person. You know, I will drop $50 on a pair of Vans, but that's about as crazy as it gets dress-wise for me. But I've always been interested in doing that. My parents had some rental property growing up, and I've always believed in the power of, you know, owning things that paid you, whatever that might be.
Passive income.
Real estate's not passive. Like, part of, and we'll get into this, like, part of my push now with YouTube is that I want to try to get the realities of the real estate business out there, because what is pushed out now, and like, I'm in it every day, they don't match, right? They don't. Like, that's why no BSR, like, I'm not BSing you, man. Like, this is how it works. Right. So long story short, I came out here, helped mom out with the house, and then we decided that we were going to pool some resources and get into the real estate business. Okay. So we started, by we, I mean, I do the work. All the properties are in some legal entities that keep us all safe and separate and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I come from the construction industry. I was taught by my dad's dad kind of how to do anything, if you will. So I decided to apply that, and then started, try to flip, didn't work. And then we got into the rental game, and that just kind of took off, and bought and sold and traded properties up. And here I sit in Scottsdale. Okay. So... Right on. So, coming out of what are some of the realities that aren't talked about when, you know, like the Dean Graciosis and stuff like that are
pushing, the real estate game out there on social media. Like the ROI is obvious if you do it right.
Sure.
But I guess that's true of anything.
That's any game, man.
But like, what are the things that you face on the day to day that aren't talked about?
Oh my God. Yeah. How much recording time we have? Probably if I had to distill it down from kind of a high level perspective, it's that, a lot of the real estate, okay, so there's the real estate industry itself, right? That is buying and selling homes, renovating homes, all that kind of stuff. Then where the line gets blurry and where a lot of people we cuss here, right? Yeah. Where a lot of people get fucked over is the people who are smart have managed to blur the line between the real estate business and the real estate education business.
Okay.
So a guy like Dean Graziosi, there's a few other big names, we're not going to sit here and drop them on the show, but there's a lot of guys who have made 10, 15, 20, 50, 100x more selling real estate education than they ever have trading property.
Okay.
Right? And so what happens is you've got these kids who come out of school and, this is going to make me sound old or whatever, but it's the Instagram instant gratification kind of bullshit that's out there. And they come out, they're like, you can be an entrepreneur. It takes no money. It takes none of your own money, none of your own credit. And you're going to be able to flip homes and then look at my IG because I'm rolling down the PCH in a Lambo with 9 girls in the back, right? Horseshit. It doesn't work that way, right? The guy who can do that charged every one of those kids $1,500 to get stuff that you can get online for free. And that's how he paid for the Lambo. So that's probably my chief kind of gripe and like why I started it. The day-to-day, I mean, it all depends on how you set it up and what type of business you want to get into. I mean, as I tell everyone, as much as I hate to say it, like I crossed the 7-figure mark in assets this year in the portfolio. And the morning after Christmas, I literally had to power wash human shit off a back porch with a sewer jetter.
Wow.
That is a fact, right? Like I had to get in my old truck, go up. It's literally the morning after Christmas. No one's around. You're not going to get the plumber on the phone. And you got to handle it, right? And there's literally human effluent coming out of a pipe in the ground. And nobody knows what to do. And it was me. Like, you just handle it.
Sure.
And so that type of stuff where, backing up, and I don't talk about this much, but we are on the podcast, so why not? Back in the tail end of my Atlanta experience, I actually worked and was on an HGTV show for 2 seasons, right?
I remember this now.
Yeah. I know. God, I hope nobody Googles that. So, but that was the flip side of it is that I got exposed, like, I know how those shows work, and I know, like, because I got to kind of pull back the curtain and see that the Wizard of Oz is just this old man pulling levers.
Sure.
Right? Like like the motivation and what's actually going on behind the scenes. Honestly, like it left a kind of bitter taste in my mouth after that experience.
Like what?
So,
what don't you see on those shows?
A couple of things. So, any number they throw out is you might as well just fart on a wall for
like they got the house for
sure, and I mean
$100K, but they've got $275 in the bank, so we're gonna throw $175 at it.
Sure, I mean anything you want to pick, right? Like, hey, on today's show, our 25-year-old yoga instructor has a budget of $1.4 million. Nothing against yoga or people who teach it, but $1.4 million is a lot of money. So the 2 things I really took away from the HGTV experience were, one, 99% of those shows are complete lies, right? They are very carefully fabricated advertisements. Okay. And basically, the real estate and home industry in America is a giant economic driver, right? So our economy is disproportionately dependent on housing because housing drives a lot of consumption, and most of that consumption is done on credit of some form, right? And our economy functions on debt and credit. It's just how it is. So that was one. And then the other one, kind of the nasty behind the scenes part of, the TV and Hollywood industry in general, is that you as a person you're a product, right? You are as replaceable as yesterday's toilet paper roll. And who wants to live like that? You know, I mean, people are awful to each other. They're, you know, it's like a mean environment that it's not collaborative. You'll help somebody out, you'll get stabbed in the back. And like, you know, I fortunately have a very good friend who has done extremely well for himself in Hollywood. So he warned me before I got into this. He's like, hey man, just know that it's coming. I'm not sure when you're going to get fucked, but you're going to get fucked, and just understand it's going to happen. Yeah. All right, fine. So I went in, and, you know, right at the beginning of the first season, that's when it happened. Yeah. I'm like, all right, cool. I was warned about this, and I handled it the best way I knew at the time, which
what happened to you?
So I was promised a renewal contract for the second season of the show. Went in on the first day of shooting, and the EP, the executive producer, brought me over to the side. He's like, hey, you know, I don't think they want to pay you for the season.
Damn.
I'm like, dude, I loaded up a truck full of tools, came out here on your word, drove 2 hours from my house. We're on set, like, they're about to flip the cameras on, and you tell me this now?
Right.
Like, you know, what do you want to do? And at that point in my life, I had, I was much more trigger happy, meaning like I would react with anger really quickly. And so I got up in the guy's face and probably said some things that weren't super professional. And at the end of the day, wound up, you know, I did learn a very valuable lesson, is that, and I hate to say it, like, I was an asshole, but I won the conversation and I came out with what I needed, which was getting paid for being on set.
Sure.
Right. But I had to be such an awful person to get there. It killed it for me. You know, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, you know, kind of when you know you're not wanted in a place, it's like, I'm going to do my job because you're paying me to do it, and that's fine. But it just, like, you know, it's heartbreaking and all of those other things at the same time. It just, it kind of kills your spirit. You're like, man, that sucked. Yeah. I don't want to do that again.
Sure.
So that's, I think, a lot of kind of what led me to, like, get back out and try my hand at the YouTube stuff, because you don't have to be that way. Yeah. Like, you can be an asshole and succeed in business. Absolutely. But you can also not be an asshole and succeed.
Sure.
And, you know, like, I was an asshole for a long time, and I'm trying to be less of one. I don't think I'll ever be cured, but yeah, you know, it's just, but a very formative experience in that, you know, feeling disposable in any given setting is just not a good feeling. Yeah. You know, I don't care where you are.
Sure.
So that's what I took away.
So as you're building your YouTube out, you know, you've worked with massive stations who have a lot of capital to sort of drive the narrative and get the advertising marketing. What's your trajectory for, like, building your YouTube out? Because it's tough to cut through all the noise when people are driving Lambos, these big ass mansions, then they run across you with this no BS. Like, how do you cut through that noise? Because a lot of people don't want to hear the truth. They might hear it and say, okay, I understand what he's saying, but he's not driving a Lambo like Ty Lopez. Like, why do I want to listen to him? How do you do that, man?
Of course. You know, and what I have done, you know, one promise I made myself when I got down into the YouTube rabbit hole is that, one, I don't expect anything back from it, right? Like, I literally put that stuff out to the world because I feel like it needs to be heard, you know? I'm a firm believer at this point, unfortunately, like, you can't save people from themselves. And all I can do is put out the truth and the reality of how things are. And I actually had an experience the other day. This kid emailed me, who knows if he'll listen to this, but if you are, Wally, I appreciate it, man. So this kid named Wally emailed me from Florida, and he's like, dude, these videos are amazing. Like, I've been struggling. I dropped out of college to do this. My family doesn't believe in me. Like, my mom has a shit job, and I'm trying to do better to take care of my family. And your videos helped. And, like, to me, getting one of those, man, if people aren't going to listen, like, let's say 999 people out of 1,000 don't ever listen, but I get that one person, and, like, he's able to help his mom out with the mortgage, whatever he's able to do. Like, that's worth it to me. And the fact of it is, like, I've gone against the grain in the real estate business, and it's working really well. So I'm going to try it at YouTube. And, I mean, you know, the market will dictate. Like, it'll either work or it won't. But either way, like, after the experience of being on that professionally shot show that was such a pile of bullshit, I'm not willing to go back, no matter what the cost.
I feel that. And jumping in from, like, a beginner's perspective, where would somebody start off, like, when they run across your material, like, in the real estate business?
Sure. So the first thing I tell everybody is that when you say the word real estate investing, right, That's like saying I like water. Okay, like there's salt water, there's water all over the world, and where a lot of people tend to falter, and I did the same thing, right? Is that like there's so much information, and real estate is such a massive world that the first thing you have to do is figure out what you want out of it, right? Like there's literally a million ways to make money in real estate, but each one requires a different skill set, different resource. Like if you don't have money, there's probably a dozen ways you can get started making money in the real estate. If you have money, there's 3 dozen, right? So where a lot of people I think screw up, and what I try to be very upfront about is pick a niche and then just be obsessed with it, right? Like I have one thing that I love to do in the real estate business, right? That's my niche. It's my, like, it's one zip code, one demographic, one property type, like, and I know everything about it. And then you can really kick some ass, right? Because you can make yourself an expert fairly quickly on these things. But the people I see who struggle a lot are just, you know, they're chasing laser beams, right? Like, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then Ty Lopez said that, and Dean Graziosi said this, and Sean Terry said that, and da-da-da-da. And then they've worked all day, and they hadn't got anything done, you know? So that would be kind of my first. Anyone that comes into it is just figure out what you want to do, and then go for it. Because the shotgun approach doesn't work. It doesn't.
So, like, because there's a million different ways to do it, and knowing you and knowing the people I know that are, because here in Arizona, it's different than any other place I've ever been, in that, you know, you're within arm's reach of somebody who fucks with real estate.
Everywhere,
all day long. You know, everybody's an agent. Everybody's, you know, got the little pin code to Redfin or whatever the hell.
No, it's a pretty open secret. Phoenix actually has one of the highest per capita concentrations of real estate agents in the world.
It's crazy. And, you know, obviously, just like, you know, CrossFit gyms, not all are created equal.
Sure.
Right. But because there's so much noise out there, it seems like you do what you do because you're built for that thing.
Yes.
More so than it is a skill set that you chose to develop. Right.
Yeah. Well, I had the skill set on board already, some of it. Yeah. And then it was easier to fill in the gaps than build a whole new machine.
Right. Versus somebody who runs an Airbnb, right? It's like a personality type.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And so how do you match the person with the game they should be playing, not the game they want to play? It seems like that's, if you can make that leap before you put any skin in the game, you save so much heartache,
money, time, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you wanted like the 30-second version of how to be real estate eHarmony, if you will, like match you to your love or whatever you want it to be. You know, I talk like so any piece of real estate, there's dirt, sticks, bricks, pipes, and wires, right? That's what they're all made of. So on top of that, you've got money and legal, right? Like that's all it is. So you just have to figure out, or if I'm making a matchmaking service, what do you already have and what do you enjoy doing, right? So like I think I was talking to you about this earlier today. Like I feel like at heart, like I'm a blue collar guy, right? I'm happy with it. I'm proud of the fact I know how to fix a car, weld, run a framing bead, all this kind of stuff. You know, that makes me happy, right? I enjoy doing it. Not everyone is that way,
right?
You know, and so it really has to do with, you know, being honest with yourself about what, like, it takes time. So you're gonna be in the grind and you're gonna be hustling and things are gonna go wrong, but as long as you're okay doing whatever is involved in that particular grind, you're gonna be fine. You know, if you're the legal type and you want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's on paperwork, there's a niche for you and you can make a ton of money. They would not do well in my world because they don't know which end of the hammer to pick up. Right? I've seen it. You know, I'll be in, I try to stay out of them, but like if I'm stuck in Lowe's and I see some dude in the tool aisle, like I'm like, oh boy, just, oh man, it's like, oh, you need to be stroking checks, dude. You don't
This
need
guy.
to be. Yeah, you're a great example.
This guy.
I said, stick to microphones and barbells, and let people like me handle the bricks and the sticks.
Yeah.
But the matchmaking service really is that. It's I tend to try to be very honest with myself about what I am good and not good at. Like. For a long time, and I'm trying to get better, but I was very sloppy with money, right? And it bit me. And I had to turn around and face that dragon and be like, all right, I suck at this. It's okay, but what do I do about it? And all of real estate is that way. It caters to me well because I'm super ADD and I'm into all kind of stuff, and a lot of things go into a real estate deal. So it was kind of like a natural fit.
Sure.
And wearing a lot of different hats, and I enjoy that. But yeah, I mean, it's about who you are and like, what do you want to do every day?
Yeah.
So along that path, did sort of like pick that out of you, I guess. Did you have mentors, or was it just, self, like?
You talking about getting into the real estate
Yeah,
business?
not even the real estate business, like discovering what exactly you want to do within real estate, because it's sort of hard to, when you're going through the muck, you said people are shooting lasers every single place.
Oh, yeah.
But for you to get focused and granular on exactly what you wanted to do, was that just like you working with yourself at night, like deep thought, or did you have a mentor help you find that path?
No, there wasn't really a mentor involved. I have had the good fortune to have made some good friends in the business. But for me to choose, my specific path and I don't know if I covered it earlier, but I buy and renovate and rent properties. Okay. So like I started with small stuff, and I've traded up and got some commercial, and just bought a little 4-unit apartment building, but that is my niche. And that decision was 100% me. Obviously I read and researched and learned and all that kind of stuff, but it's about staying power in that game. So as I tell everyone, like, if you can just follow a course, like, there is no reason why you cannot hit the $1 million mark in 5 years or less. There is no reason, right? So, for me, it was just the cleanest path forward to what I saw. And then obviously no plan goes according to plan.
Right.
Mine didn't. But the staying power and, just keeping it's like, listen, all right, I'm getting my ass kicked right now, but I've just got to stay the course. And if you can weather the storm, you come out the other end, you're like, oh my God, that worked. But choosing that was very much like, this is my skill set. This is what I'm good at. And then honestly, man, the other part of it was because the recession was so scary for me financially that I wanted to take, like, I'm a weenie when it comes to real estate, right? Like, I don't want to take big risks. I don't. Like, I know how to, and I know that there's big rewards out there. But I think, like, the battle scars that I carried, like, dude, I don't ever want credit card companies calling me 6 times a day. That's like, it's embarrassing. It's humiliating. Like, it made me feel like shit. I remember I got screwed over on a lumber deal. This was in the depths of the recession. This builder, I won't say his name, but he's a shady bastard, and he got me on a legal and financial loophole that I didn't know about, because he was in his 40s and I was 27, and he was able to basically bankrupt one of his LLCs and hose me out of about 10 grand. And I literally, like, I remember going home and almost throwing up, right? Like, it was, I was doing maybe $250,000 a year in gross revenue, very slim margins. And, you guys know business, a $10,000 hit at the wrong time is, it's a shot to the head.
Oh yeah.
Like, I literally had to call my best friend and tell him I couldn't make his bachelor party. Right. Like, it was up to that. Like, I had to skip that. And so part of having those experiences is now, in the real estate business, is I wanted to go for something that I knew, like, in my heart of hearts, that no matter what is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. So very reactionary. And I'm who knows, maybe I'd need more hugs or therapy or something. But, I swung the pendulum as far the other way as I could. And it, so far so good. But there's also, I'm never going to be able to shake that kind of recession thing where, I know that also if the world ends again, because I've been through it, I'm still like, people are still going to be in there. They're still paying the rent. I can still take care of the mortgages. Like, it's going to be okay. Right. So I stress test it.
Dope. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that, because I remember we sat down as you were approaching that 7-figure mark, and you were on the fence about that fourplex.
I was.
And, and we've all felt it in the business world. There's that pit in your stomach that often gets confused with fear or excitement. And if you're on the cautious side of the house, you cater towards the fear side of that feeling. But we've lived enough life and had enough experiences that feeling means push.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And playing that, you were sitting there juggling the risk reward thing. Am I really going to do this?
Yeah.
And it really just came down to, what do you really want? If you want the 7-figure book, this is the deal.
Yeah.
And you've done enough fishing, and I've heard about you doing the fishing. Like, it's on the fucking hook, man.
Yeah.
Do it. And had it not been for that conversation, you were about to walk away from that deal.
Yeah.
Like, I think that just plays to the structure of your inner circle. You know what I'm saying?
Very much so.
The people that you trust for counsel, aren't going to, you can do it. You know what I mean? Just to make you feel good, and give you the attaboy. It's like, look, man, yeah, it's work, and you know that, but this is the way to get what you want.
Absolutely.
And if it was not the deal, that's the counsel you would have got too. So, like, as you've walked this path and you continue down it, how critical has it been to have those people to your left and your right to keep you on the path?
100%. Right. Like I remember, I forget who told me this, but no, actually it was from Tim Ferriss's book, right? It's called, he talks about standing on the shoulders of giants. And, I'll be honest, I have gotten myself in trouble quite a few times in life. We're going to call them politely crimes of enthusiasm, right? I'm like, I can do it, right? And something I've had this problem my entire life where, like, I don't really acknowledge the good things that I've done. I'll accomplish something badass, and I'm like, all right, cool. I got it done. Like, let's get back on it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, kind of tying into what you were saying is that because I've had crimes of enthusiasm in the past, there are when things get super critical, sometimes I don't always trust my own judgment. Right. And just because I've had these bad experiences, as I go on, I'm learning to trust myself a little more and a little more. But, as I say, like, real estate is a kind of a second chance industry. I don't know if anyone talks about that, but it is. I mean, you can go flat ass broke and bounce back in a few years, right? You straight up can. And I feel like it's definitely given me a second chance because the lumber business just destroyed me financially. I mean, dude, I came out here with nothing, and then there was another business deal I got in. I bankrolled a guy in the ticket business right when I got to town and didn't do quite enough. That's another story. And I mean, he stiffed me for 50 large. I mean, it was, he took everything I had.
Yeah.
And so because I've had so many of those bad experiences, it's taken time, and the circle of people around me has been insanely critical because I want to make sure that I'm just not fucking nuts. Right? So, I mean, because I go for a lot of deals that no one else wants to touch.
Sure.
And that's, call it whatever you want. I mean, and I know I have kind of a weirdo skill set, but like I go after stuff. People are like, you want that? Like, yeah, it smells like money, and then it turns out it works, and it might even be repeat. I mean, it looks like I got a business model on my hands here, but the fear part is really real, you know, and that's been a serious struggle to, man, because this. I mean, as the numbers get bigger on the table, there's more to gain, but man, like you got something to lose, you know, and you think about that, and you really don't want to fuck it up.
Sure.
So, but yeah, having people around who can honestly say that works or you're a moron, go home, sleep it off is insanely critical.
Yeah.
So as you're building your circle out, what sort of specific traits do you value the most when you're looking and reaching out to somebody that you believe in or value their opinion? What are some traits that they have to have that are from highest to lowest priority for you?
Yeah, so probably the biggest one for me is brutal honesty, right? And I come from, as I say, I come from your standard issue southeastern USA white middle class family, and they are PhDs in not saying stuff, right? And not to drag any of my family into this, but it's caused a lot of pain and suffering by not saying stuff. So one of the things I tend to gravitate towards with other people and all this kind of thing is if something's the matter, just get it out there, right? Like I'm not, as you know, like I'm not a super sensitive person on how you say things. Like, hey man, like I remember looking at a picture of myself as my dad's 60th birthday. It was a family picture, and I was working too hard and super stressed, and I'd let myself go, right? I was fat. I'm like, damn, I am fat. Like, why didn't any of my friends be like, yo, you need to eat more vegetables and start doing some push-ups, man. Like this, you're not taking care of yourself. And so top priority for me, kind of getting back to it, is brutal honesty. And then the other, probably second after that, is I value people who've had real world experience, right? So like, to me, if someone's been up and been down, they've been successful and gotten knocked flat on their ass, I want to talk to that guy. Because the people it's just all been success and roses and puppies and unicorn farts all their life, like, it's hard for me as a person to value that as much because, you know how it is. You got to kind of pay your dues.
Yeah.
And then other than that, like I look at people who are good at what they're doing and kind of think a little bit differently. I have some different business principles than a lot of people. I'm kind of doing the right thing and, some environmental things that I care deeply about. I grew up in the Southeast, so I've been around the oil and gas industry, and I've seen like the destruction that can cause. I don't want anything to do with it, so I tend to gear business towards just like people who give a shit, who are like trying to do the right thing. I've really kind of gravitated towards those traits.
Okay.
I
feel that, man.
You gotta, at the end of the day, you gotta look at yourself in the mirror before you go to bed at night and do you like what you see, or do you want to punch the mirror?
Yeah, but it makes complete sense with everything that you're doing with your podcast, your business, how you're running it, just who you are as a person from knowing you at the gym and stuff. It makes sense. It follows that line. But when you can actually clarify and pick it out of yourself, it shows that you have a lot of self insight. You know what I mean? That's a very good trait to have. A lot of people don't even know why they attract a certain like type of person or circumstances in their life. Yeah. But you're completely aware of that, and that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes, Jeff. And had to look a lot of demons right in the eye.
Oh, dude, you and I'm with you, dude. Yeah,
it's a big claw, but
it's an exclusive one.
It is, and the other part, is I have no idea where this thought came from, but it's like the worst thing I think that you could ever do is make a huge mistake and then not learn something from it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like, everybody fucks up, right? Sure. We could probably start a whole other YouTube podcast about, like, tell me how you fucked up, right? That'd be the longest running show in the world. But, like, the worst thing you can do, like, I've had a couple very bad personal tragedies happen within, my family and that kind of stuff. And I think that, the biggest dishonor you can do someone or something else or some mistake is to not learn anything from it.
Sure.
And not try to alter a behavior pattern because of something you've learned. You are figuratively pissing on their tombstone, which is not nice.
Right. Where does the I'm going to do it myself thing come from for you? Because you're, not an employee by any means. Like, it's not in your DNA. And anytime that you've been a W-2 for somebody in the rare short lengths that it's been since I've known you, you fucking hate it from day one to the day that you quit.
And probably a day after.
You know what I mean? So, like, where's that come from for you?
God, so if I really had to pull that out, I would say that it probably a lot of it has to do with a very deep mistrust of the way a lot of things are portrayed to be, right? So I've spent a lot of time, down all kinds of rabbit holes about things that people take for granted. And 99 times out of 100, when you really peel back the onion and you get to the nugget, there's some type of fucking lie behind it. Like, we don't need to go into examples, but I think anyone who truly understands that statement can 50 pop in their head right now. And so it's all, you know, to me, it was one of those things where, you know, I'm being told to do something, or, you know, I have a W-2 job or whatever else, but I know that at some point along this journey or this transaction or this role or whatever, someone's bullshitting somebody, and they probably don't have to. Right? And there are, you know, so I have wound my way through my, you know, 3.5 decades on this rock and figured out that this is a way, you know, in my world now, I can make money. I can leave a legacy for anyone else in my family. If I'm no longer on this earth, there's some great assets that produce money for them. But I can also be good to people and get rewarded financially for it. Right. You know, and figuring that out took me a long time, but I think that's really what's killed me about the W-2 stuff or some other things, and kind of what led me into the YouTube space is it, you know, I'm not going to lie to somebody just to try to make a bunch of money. I mean, I'm capable of it. You know, I mean, for Christ's sake, I spent some time in a subprime mortgage office in 2007, right? Not my finest hour. Created some problems for the world. Sorry. But, you know, that's kind of, I think what's led to it is just, you know, being able to, again, it's back to being able to look at yourself in the mirror before you go to bed at night. Yeah. You know, like, what, are you just banging away on your computer 9 to 5, like waiting to get to Friday? Or are you going to leave the world a better place than you found it? Yeah. You know, and do you give a shit? Because some people don't, and that's fine. Right. I just, for whatever reason, I do. You know?
Yeah, you find that a lot, man, especially when I left the corporate America world, you know, things happen throughout your path. You're like, this seems like a great path, and I see myself going up the ranks. Yeah. And then, you know, you get hit with the shit can of stuff, man. And then you realize that you have to take your destiny into your own hands, you know, like no matter who's in office, no matter what government entity, no matter where you're working, nobody's going to take care of you, right? Yeah. And you have to take care of yourself first before anybody else, you know, values you. So it's one of those things that I think all of us have run across in our lives, but it really takes that initial push or that kick in the face sometimes. Yeah. And like you said, buying into that fear, that motivation or excitement in your gut and listening to it and saying like, yeah, maybe a hard ass path. I may have to, you know, work through the worst economy for 4 years, but coming out on the other side of that, you're going to be a stronger person. And that's stuff that you're not going to learn in any school or institution, or nobody can teach you. No. It's just hard ass lessons.
Yeah, man. Like I try to contribute a lot. There's a great website called Quora, which is kind of like the internet garage sale of information, if you will. And, you know, one of my morning things now is I get up and people request answers from you on Quora. Yeah. So I write a lot about real estate and all this kind of stuff. And I try to get up and contribute 1 to 2 answers a day for people because they're searching for that, right? But I mean, I literally have it in my signature, like I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. Because that's it sounds super cliche and stupid, but that's what happened. You know, I mean, I'm just got my teeth kicked in enough that I didn't want to get my teeth kicked in anymore. Yeah, that's true. You know, like you wake up and you're like, whatever's going to happen, you know, you just got to dust yourself off and get back in the fight and keep swinging.
It's true.
You know, and I mean, shit, man, I got something like that tattooed up my sides. Just remind me when things get a little tough, like you got to look at that like, all right, you know, get back in it and get back in the fight.
It's true, man.
Yeah, and it's just the way it is, I suppose.
Yeah. So what do you see for yourself? Like, what's the bigger vision for yourself and going into your company, where you want to take it? Because you mentioned leaving a legacy.
Sure. So the real estate business itself, you know, I got in it with a fairly specific goal to acquire a certain number of doors and a certain dollar amount of rental property. You know, in real estate, we talk about cap rates and ROIs, basically just the amount of money it makes every month, right? We don't have to go into the details, but I got into that with a specific goal. I am on the path to get there, right? And so I know at this point, like I know deep in my heart that as long as I follow what I've been doing and I don't deviate from the principles that have gotten me here, I'll get there in the next 2 to 3 years, right? I was actually writing about this morning. The other thing, this happened not long after I bought the office building, but I was listening to a podcast about that Tim Ferriss interviewed Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Right. And Schwarzenegger, as we all know, I mean, I'm 180 pounds soaking wet on a good day, right? Not going to be on a Mr. Olympia stage anytime soon, and I probably drink a little too much beer anyway. But Arnold talked about training his weaknesses out of himself. So what he did, literally, he wanted to get into acting, or, his moonshot, right? Do cool stuff. So he built himself a base of real estate income that no one could take away from him. And then you can do whatever you want. Like, let's say you go out and audition for the biggest acting job ever and you fall flat on your face. Who cares? The bills are paid. You got property. You got money coming in. You go home, you lick your wounds, and you try it again, right? And that one hit me right in the head. I was like, I've always gravitated towards kind of the, I like being around cameras and all that kind of stuff, and I wanted to do something good with it because of my last experience. And for me, like the grand plan, since you're asking, is, in real estate, we talk about stabilizing assets. So I've got to get the portfolio bought and then stabilized, meaning you buy them up, you fix all the stuff that's wrong with them, and you get them rented out to good people, right? Rent's coming in, nothing's breaking, you're good. And then it's really going to be, pushing the YouTube stuff. Again, right now it's just a matter of I'm trying to share my knowledge with the world. I've worked at a couple startup companies as a sales trainer, and I trained, contract negotiation and this sort of thing. Being a professional asshole, if you will, when it comes to money. But I trained that, and, getting that out there to the world, and then the beers and stories has been an amazing experience, I was telling Michael this earlier, some guys that back when I got started in real estate investing, I bought their book, right? I've read it cover to cover a bunch of times. Jake and Gino, they're super cool dudes, jakeandgino.com if you want to check them out. But they're in the apartment world, right? They buy and trade big multifamily assets, and they're really good at it. And they actually reached out. We were tagging back and forth on an Instagram post, and I hit him with a message. I'm like, why don't you, would you ever want to do a beers and stories with me? Like, yeah, come on out to Florida. We'll sit on the beach and have a beer and talk. And dude, it just, the top of my head popped off. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. 4 years ago, I'm like putting their $17 book on Amazon on my credit card because I didn't have any money. And now 4 years worth of slugging it out later, and, a lot of downs and some ups and all that stuff. Like, now I have the ability to hop a plane with a friend of mine and some video cameras and literally sit down with guys that, I've admired and learned so much from, and it's just, full disclosure, it's kind of a selfish endeavor, but being able to do that, dude, it's incredible to me. Yeah. I never, it still blows my mind a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to do this. It's awesome. Yeah. It's super cool. Yeah. And it just, it puts a smile on your face and a song in your heart and all that kind of stuff. And it's awesome to just be given those kind of opportunities. And then I don't know, just keep at it, keep putting the work in and kind of see what happens and see where it leads me. I enjoy training people and sharing what I've learned. So the more the merrier.
I love that, man. That's dope, dude.
So,
one last question before we close this thing out. You and I were talking about, because your podcast is really dedicated to paying it forward. Right. I feel like that's the underlying obvious theme of that whole initiative, right? Is helping people avoid the hard lessons that you've had to learn, right? If that happens, then,
or at least know what's coming.
Yeah. And you and I were talking about going back to your willingness to train people in sales and contract negotiation and stuff like that. You've turned a very, for lack of a better term, self-serving industry into something that's pretty altruistic. And people that have that quality inherently, the quality of altruism, hate asking for money and getting paid for what they do. And you and I have had that conversation many times over. Because you're not wired that way. You just found it to be an endeavor that's worthwhile. So you're coming at it from the other side. Why do you think that is?
Well, I've had we'll call it a semi-lifelong track record of screwing myself over financially by giving stuff away.
Yeah.
I guess old habits die hard.
Yeah.
Part of it right now is the mindset that I think if you do the right thing, money will find you, right? And being perfectly honest, like I do have a coaching program that I'm beginning to work on that is going to cost some money. It's not going to cost a lot of money, but it is going to be charged for at some point. The altruism thing is, I guess where it really comes from for me is that, what's the old saying? Like if more knowledge were the answer, we would all be billionaires with perfect abs.
Right.
Right. And I'm not worth $1 billion and you can't see my abs. Right. Getting there. The abs part anyway. But the altruism part for me is that I guess it's the knowledge that I have is that you don't have to be a dick to make a lot of money. And then the other part of it, and I see this day in and day out. So my last 2 jobs at startup offices, I worked with a lot of people who were probably 10 years younger than I am, right? So let's call them anywhere from 18 years old up to about 25. And, I got paid at the time and still kind of do to give them technical knowledge, right? This is how you do this. This is how you do this. Part of it is like, I know that 9 out of 10 of them are never going to put in the work to actually compete with me, right? Like I know that because I see it day in and day out. And like they're given everything they need to succeed and they still kind of fall flat on their face. But at the end of the day, I've done everything I can. People get into real estate because they're literally trying to alter their life. Yeah. Right. They need massive change. Things aren't working. They're tired of working some shit dead end job. And it's an industry that welcomes anybody with open arms. But at the end of the day, if you don't put in the work, you're never going to get anywhere. So the pay it forward mentality is one, it makes me feel good. And I think I've discussed this with you and I'm pretty open about it. My family has a long history of mental illness, right? And I've been diagnosed multiple times with depression. And I'm not interested in medicating it, what traditional means. I tried that once, didn't work well. So a big part of it for me is real estate is really the pursuit of happiness, right? It's a lifestyle business. It's a lifestyle decision. And honestly, it's kind of like beers and stories. It's a bit selfish. Giving that away and helping other people makes me feel better, right? And if I can do something like that instead of take some pill that some doctor who doesn't give a shit is going to give me in a bottle and I get the same result, I'm going to turn on the camera and get it done. It seems way safer in a word. So I think that's a lot of the root of it, is it's somewhat selfish. And I know I'm not shooting myself in the foot because I offer this. There's a bunch of kids in our office like, hey, we want to see how rental property works. I'm like, cool. Here's the address. I'm there working every day. If you guys want to make some extra money, come by on the weekends. I will literally show you how to run a rental business. Not one of them showed up. Not one of them even called.
Right.
And I'm not hurt about it. Yeah. It's just like, dude, you've got all the tools and the skills. Like, I'm not going to put a foot in your ass. I'm not your dad, And I wish them all the best. Yeah. But that's just, if we're back to hard reality, there it is.
Sure. Yeah.
Dude, I love that, man. Where can everybody follow you and support you on everything you have going, brother?
So right now I'm pushing hard on YouTube. It's just my name, Darwin Crawford. Get on there. There's a garage sale worth of videos. If you want technical training in the real estate business, it's there. If you want to see me, drink some beers and talk to people who are honestly really kicking some ass in the business and have done some cool stuff, those are there as well. But it's kind of my main focus these days.
Okay.
All the rental properties are full. I got people beating down my door to rent more, and so that part I don't really need any help with. Or, if you want to come run a paintbrush, Jeff, I got some work for you.
I'll be there, bro. I'll show up.
I know. I'm going to have to teach you how. Durs is not allowed.
Notice he went that way because he knows I can't fuck with tools.
No, you are not allowed near any of the properties with a tool in your hand.
We got Tristan, a little 2-year-old Black & Decker tool set, and I discovered as I'm putting it together, Nicole's taking pictures and being like, "Look at this idiot," and sending them to him. You know, so
That's crazy.
He's at it again.
Yeah. Good luck with that plastic hammer there, buddy. So, but yeah, the like I said, YouTube. I mean, I like it, love it, hate it. Tell me I did a terrible job. You know, I'm kind of an open book. So
I'll troll you.
I bet you will. I know where you work. So, but yeah, and like I said, I mean, I appreciate you guys having me on, and you know,
Dude, appreciate you, man.
the opportunity. So
Seriously, dude.
And who knows, we'll drag you guys over to turn on a camera and have a beer one of these days.
Oh, hey, man.
Yeah, it
Let's do
works.
I love it, dude.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.
You know, support everything that Darwin has going on. If you're interested in getting in the game whatsoever, you now have a reputable resource to at least get your feet wet and get some real knowledge about what you're potentially getting yourself into. And you know, appreciate you paying that forward, putting that out there, and you know, not bullshitting the naive. You know, that's one of, you know, I think that plagues so many industries, mine included.
Absolutely.
That it's good to have a healthy dose of reality and access to it.
Yeah.
So really appreciate you, man. Yeah.
So one video at a time.
Keep fighting the good fight, brother. Yeah.
I appreciate it very much.
You're
For
doing,
sure.
bro.
So,
Good shit, man.
Good stuff.
Until next time, guys. Feed me, fuel me.